Hey everyone, it's Andy Kushner, host of The Wedding Biz, in which I conduct in-depth and revealing interviews of icons and those who I feel are the next generation icons of the weddings and event industry. This is all to provide you with education and inspiration and empowerment. And speaking of that, I am so inspired. My mother came to visit me last weekend. She's from Tampa. I live in Maryland, just out of D.C. And we got to talking about how we are all wired for self-protection, but it doesn't always present itself in the best way. And what I mean for me is that my default seems to be to focus on the glass being half empty. I've struggled with that a long time in my life. I'm definitely getting better. I mean, I have certainly great moments when I don't even think of it as being half full, but like totally full. However, it seems easier, especially with this crazy political climate that's going on right now, fostering so much fear. It seems easier to lean more toward thinking about the problems and the challenges that we have versus the wonderful things going on. And my mother really helped put it in perspective and was, had to remind me, what's going so well in my life and how next year, 2020, is going to be really good for me because I'm in such a great place in my relationship. And I have this wonderful new partnership with Kushner Entertainment, my music company, with this guy, Robert Sherman, who was on the podcast last week, and how this show, The Wedding Biz, is really coming into its own. And there's just so many fun and exciting things on the horizon. But I had to be reminded. Also, I had this wonderful dinner last week in New York City with my dear friend Sylvia Weinstock, who not that long ago lost her husband, whom she had been married to for almost 70 years. And they had this just unusually wonderful, wonderful relationship. And yet, at her age, she of course misses him greatly, but she's so grateful. She expressed how grateful she is to have even had him in her life. And she just moved recently to a beautiful new apartment. She absolutely loves her life and has so much to look forward to. And like my mother, she reminded me to reflect on all the good things that I have. So let's all take a moment. Perhaps even pause this podcast for a couple of minutes and just give yourself that gift of thinking about focusing on the good things that you have in your life. No matter how rough things might be, it's okay. We can really still give us that moment of thinking about what we do have. So before I recap last week's episode and then introduce today's guest, I want to mention that I'm going to be at Engage in the Media Lounge. And those of you who are going to be there would love to meet you. Please come up and introduce yourselves. At a minimum, you'll find me in the Media Lounge and definitely would love to talk to you. So last week's episode was with Robert Sherman, owner of Washington Talent, an iconic entertainment company. This is a guy who is just so clearly passionate and so committed to what he does. And we all heard about how he has evolved himself and his business, as well as quite a dynamic conversation about the idea of finding and forming a new business partnership, which was with me for Kushner Entertainment. So we had a great time talking about all of that. So this week's guest is Micaela Erlanger, a celebrity stylist based out of New York City and LA. She is also the best-selling author of How to Accessorize, a perfect finish to every outfit. Micaela was named one of the most powerful stylists by The Hollywood Reporter and has sustained that title for 5 years now. Honored with the Style Influencer Awards by the Accessories Council, also the Maria Claire Image Maker Award winner. She styled Constance Wu, Lupita Nyong'o. She talks about Lupita, Jared Leto, Common, Jennifer Hudson, Hilary Swank, Blake Lively, Shailene Woodley, and more. And she recently styled Amanda Hearst for one of the most talked about celebrity weddings of 2019. Her work can be seen on some of the biggest red carpets around the globe, and she has been profiled and or featured in top fashion publications and on major TV shows. And she has a big announcement that she mentions for the first time on this show. So enjoy my conversation with Micaela Erlanger. Hey, Micaela, it is so cool to have you on the show. You're actually my first stylist who's on the show.
Oh.
Yeah, I've had makeup, hair, all kinds of stuff, kind of on the outside of it, but I'm really excited. So on I think it's your website, unless it was an interview, I think it was a website, you have a quote by Edith Head that says, "You can have anything you want in life if you dress for it." And I'd love to hear more about that, like what that means to you.
Oh, I think it's my mantra. I love that quote. And I believe it's true. I believe that if you exude confidence and you feel great, that shines. And oftentimes that starts with getting dressed.
Yeah. Well, I'm going to definitely come back to this, but I would love to know how all this started for you. You, I understand, were brought up in New York City, right? Born and raised here?
Born and raised New Yorker.
Was there any aspect of this, either with parents or at an early age, you being interested in fashion and styling? Did anything manifest early?
Absolutely. Some of my earliest memories from childhood are playing dress up. For me, fashion is something that I truly believe has always been in my blood. I've always been incredibly creative. And even as a little girl, just spent my days putting together outfits and dreaming in this fantasy land. And I always loved acting and, playing with my sister and so forth. And so I think it's very natural and fitting that I have found myself in this line of work. I wound up going to Parsons School of Design later in my years for my undergraduate degree.
But I'm curious, in high school, even before you got there.
Yeah, I think I got best school style for my superlative.
Oh, did you?
Yeah. I mean, I would spend my days organizing my closet and putting together outfits, and the girls would come over and we'd get ready for prom together. I mean, literally, I feel like I have been styling myself and others since I can remember. I remember changing my little baby sister's clothes in the middle of the night.
Oh, come on.
Yeah.
In the middle of the night.
In the middle of the night. We shared a room in New York City. And I mean, she must have been months old. She was in her crib, and I would throw her in a party dress or put stockings and patent leather shoes on. And my mom would come in and be like, "What? When did you do this? Why did you do this?"
Isn't it interesting? It's interesting to me, Micaela, so many people on the show, there is some aspect of what they do now when they were little.
Yeah.
And it's where does it come from?
It comes from inside.
It does, doesn't it? It's unexplainable.
Yeah.
But it drives you. So you decided to go to Parsons School of Design. When you decided to go to school, what were you at the time? What was your dream? What were you thinking of doing?
Well, actually, I did do pre-med for 2 years prior at a small school in Florida. And I realized very quickly that while that was of interest to me, it was not my true calling. So I transferred. Best decision I ever made.
Yeah, pre-med. I don't see that.
Yeah, not a fit. Biochem didn't work for me. So I wound up studying design and management, which was an incredible course. It allowed me to really learn the tools and skills to go out and launch a business. Now, I didn't know what a stylist was. Stylists didn't really exist. It wasn't until college that Rachel Zoe sort of popularized what it was to be a stylist. So what I had the intention of doing was being a fashion editor. And every semester and every summer, I would intern at one of the publications. And it was really through that exposure to the industry that I learned about what being an editor was. Now, at the time, being an editor was essentially like being a stylist. You were putting together looks, you were calling in clothes, and you were telling a story through image. And so I'd be on set and we'd be shooting, and it was thrilling. It was a thrilling experience and an incredible opportunity to learn about the business. And one day, I remember this so clearly, there were these freelancers in the office. And I asked the editor that I reported to what the freelancers did. And she said, "That's a freelance stylist." And I said, how do I do what they do? It's so interesting. They get to work on all these different projects and they get to come and go, and they're always doing something new. And so that's kind of when my eyes were open to this other world of possibility. And anyway, 2008 came around. All the magazines were firing. No one was hiring. It did not seem like I was going to have a career as being a fashion editor.
Yeah.
And so I had to get resourceful. And it was through the connection of a family friend that I was introduced to one of the top stylists of the time. Her name was Annabelle Tolman. And I went on.
Who styled Scarlett Johansson? She was known for that.
Yes, she styled Scarlett. She styled the Olsen twins. She styled Mariah Carey, Jennifer Hudson. I mean, she styled so many incredible people. America Ferrera. I mean, the list goes on.
Mm-hmm. What did you do with it? You just simply assist?
Yes, I was her intern, and I would say I was a glorified intern. I worked with her full time for a year. and really learned the ins and outs of that side of the business. It was really a thrilling time, and I was given tremendous creative responsibility, but she couldn't hire me. She had an assistant, and, at a certain time, I had to get a job. So through a series of other sort of freelance experiences, I was connected to a costume designer, and we hit it off. We did a few projects together, and she wound up inviting me out to LA to be the assistant costume designer on several major feature films.
But I'm curious, just to go back for a moment, what would you say are some of the biggest things you learned from Annabelle?
Well, I went on to work with Annabelle for 6 years after coming back to New York. So the story doesn't end there.
Okay.
But Annabelle really mentored me and taught me all there was to know about the business from the bottom up. She was an incredible mentor and friend, and I learned what it took to run a styling business. So that time with her was invaluable.
So you're talking about the business of doing it as well.
Of course. Yeah, it's not just about having good taste, mind you.
Yeah.
She taught me about what goes into doing the work. She helped train my eye. And then, of course, she taught me how to run a company. So the time that I had working with her over the course of those 6 years was transformative for me.
It sounds like that's your PhD in learning this.
The best way to learn is to just, dive in.
It is. Well, and I'm also thinking combining back with your interest in fashion editing. I mean, this is hugely also about branding.
Absolutely. Especially with style, that's something that's so outward facing. It is an extension of your brand.
Yeah.
The image that you project is an extension of what you represent, literally, in my line of work.
Well, let's get into that. So, I believe it's in your website. You talk about the influence of styling for events and how there's a power in what we choose to wear.
Yeah.
Can you say more about that?
Well, I think that style can be transformative, and I've learned the effects of what it means to tell a story or creating a moment. So, just to finish my career trajectory, I worked with Annabelle as her intern for a year, unpaid, slaving away, loving every minute of it. And through a series of connections, I was introduced to a costume designer who invited me out to LA to work on 2 major feature films.
What were those?
The first one was called Peep World, and it was with Taraji Henson and Octavia Spencer before they were Emmy and Oscar winners, Kate Mara, Michael C. Hall. It was an insane cast. And it was like a coming of age story. I moved out there. I got a one-way ticket. I had no money. I had to rent a car. So all I could afford was a rent-a-wreck, which is a car on its way to the junkyard.
I'm familiar with that. Yes. I looked at that.
$10 a day.
Yeah. Like 30 years ago, I was doing that.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
And I went out and I set out to be the best assistant costume designer I possibly could be. And I learned an extraordinary amount and really actually created some lifelong relationships that I still call on today and built my portfolio of independent work. And that same costume designer invited me back to New York to do another movie with her with the New York City Ballet called Opus Jazz. It's the Jerome Robbins Ballet. Mm-hmm. One of my proudest pieces to this day. And throughout this entire time, I had stayed in touch with Annabelle. I missed the glamour of the red carpet. I missed editorial, and I missed the celebrity side of things. And while costume design was an extraordinary learning experience, it wasn't really where my heart was. Mm-hmm. So when I moved back to New York, I reached out to Annabelle again, and she said, "Oh, good timing. I need to hire a new assistant. Can you come work for me?"
Jeez, perfect.
So it was
serendipitous,
perfect.
huh?
Yeah. So I went on to work with her for quite some time. And as the world will have it, the makeup artist from that ballet movie reached out to me one day and said, "There's this actress that I'm working with. She's in this show, Downton Abbey. She's going to go to the Golden Globes and she needs a stylist. Can I recommend you?" And that was Michelle Dockery.
Oh, wow.
And I said, "Of course." And I met Michelle and we hit it off, and Michelle was my first client. And with her, I experienced how one dress can change everything. She wore Alexander Vautier couture. She was the first actress to wear his designs on the red carpet. Now you see everybody wearing Vautier. You see Gigi and Bella and, every movie star wearing his designs. But she put an unknown designer on the map and he put her on the map.
Right.
And suddenly, overnight, her picture was in every newspaper and every magazine. This was before Instagram. And it was thrilling.
Wow. So in terms of, coming back to, again, the power of how you dress, and how you feel and the branding, putting all that together, you had also said that it affects the experiential aspect, like even the flowers, the food, the lighting. How is all that tied together the way you look at it?
Well, of course. I mean, in the celebrity world, you have a team, and the team is comprised of your stylist, your hairstylist, your makeup artist, your nail technician, your publicist, your managers and so forth. And I kind of take that same approach into the way I work with my clients. It's very holistic and it's very 360. So you're working with a team to create a powerful moment. And if the pieces don't align, if the hair is too big and it doesn't complement the dress, or the lip is too strong and it doesn't work, it offsets things. And so it really is about curation and about really speaking the same visual language. And when all the pieces align, that's like when magic happens.
See, and specifically in terms of events, and eventually we're going to talk about this new bridal styling and consulting division that you've launched. I'm excited to hear about that. But as related to events, yeah, like you're saying, you've got the connection between and the main pieces, the accessories, and then there's the decor, the flowers, the music.
Absolutely.
How do you work all that in? How do you look at that?
Absolutely. I mean, intrinsically, I'm a very visual person. I need to understand the setting. I need to understand the context of what is, at least on the red carpet, what's being promoted. Is this a press tour? Is this an award show? What's the nature of the work of art being promoted? Is it a scary movie, or is it an action flick, or is it sci-fi? You have to think about the person who's wearing the clothes and what it is that they are trying to achieve.
Mm-hmm.
And so over the years, working with some of the most famous movie stars in the world, I have realized that my success has come from really being able to understand that narrative. So, for example, I style Lupita Nyong'o.
Mm-hmm.
And the year that Lupita won the Oscar was arguably the year that put me on the map. She had an incredible run promoting her movie 12 Years a Slave. And we sort of built upon each appearance. I keep coming back to saying we're telling a story, and it's true. There was a subtle narrative the entire time, and I had set out to show people who she was, why she mattered, and why she stood out from the crowd. And so we put her in an array of designers and unusual choices and bold colors and things that people hadn't done before, because it fit the narrative and the story that we were telling. And it allowed us to really build upon that. It's like we crescendoed with that custom blue Prada gown that she won the Academy Award in. And it was so well done. Hair and makeup were working together. The events were appropriate. You never want to be in the wrong dress for the wrong occasion. So it really was thoughtful and deliberate choices, sometimes ones that might surprise others, but ultimately you create impact.
Well, and you recently styled last year one of the most talked about celebrity weddings of this year, 2019, Amanda Hearst. And we were talking earlier, David McMahon is the planner and, who's been on the show twice.
Yeah.
He's incredible.
He's incredible.
Yeah. And so can you tell me the story of styling for Amanda, like even from the beginning when you met her and how it was that you discussed, what is it that what is the message? What is the storyline? What is the narrative? And then each step of the way.
Absolutely. Well, Amanda and I were actually connected by our mutual friend, Fernando Garcia, who's the co-creative director of Oscar de la Renta. And he recommended that we connect and that I help her in styling her for her wedding. And it was great because little did he know I was launching my bridal business. So Amanda was going to be my first bride.
Perfect timing.
Perfect timing.
My God.
And she was a dream to work with, and it was incredibly collaborative. But one of the first steps, actually, after meeting Amanda, getting a sense of her personality, because you never want the dress to wear the client, you want the client to wear the dress. It was really important to me that I meet the other creatives on her team. So meeting David and meeting her other planner, and really understanding the setting and the details, the time of day, the floral, what any of the fabrics were going to be, what the food choices were, what the displays would be like. I needed to have a sense of the space, what music was going to play. All of those details mattered. What time was the sun going to set? Because all of it tied back to how the images were going to be captured.
Yes. Again, coming back to fashion editing, that the photos are going to be out there.
Absolutely. And you want to create a feeling. And that feeling is sometimes even more powerful than the pictures that you capture. That feeling is what lasts a lifetime. And so I actually had several meetings with David and his team. And then when we arrived to the property, we did a walkthrough of the property and so forth. Although I had seen images in advance, it allowed us to also sort of think about where we would stage certain shots, where we would do certain portraits and so forth. And so it didn't just inform me about the direction of the dresses that I was going to choose and the jewelry and so forth, but it also informed me of a mood.
Yes.
And that mood is so important. Again, you have to be speaking the same visual language. So Amanda and I actually had so much fun for her wedding. We created completely sustainable designs. Sustainability is a huge focus for her. She is the co-founder of Maison de Mode, which is a sustainable platform for retailers. And we really focused on custom design, which for me also was such a treat because that's what I excel in and what I love doing. I create custom Oscar gowns left and right. And now I'm creating the same for a bride on her most special day. So we had a lot of fun, and it was really important. We looked at old film references, the fact that she was marrying a world famous director was important. So the idea of looking to film for a reference also became personal. It's all in the details. It's not just about picking out a pretty dress.
Yeah.
Lots of people can do that, and that's not what I do. I'm in the business of making a moment.
So in terms of what you're talking about with all the little details that you did in Amanda's dress, that ties in everything that you're talking about here. Can you describe, without photos right here, and we can have them in the show notes, by the way, but can you describe what you ended up putting together for her?
I think we put together a fairy tale, and as cliche as that sounds, I mean, every single detail was thoughtful and lent itself to sort of this incredible romanticism and old Hollywood glamour. It was the setting. It was the choice of dress. It was, David's choice of music and design of the space. It was floral. It was every single detail. I mean, I remember thinking to myself, it's like we choreographed the evening.
Yes.
And every moment of the entire day was so perfectly planned. It just worked together. Every piece was in place as it should be.
Well, you're taking the guest people around her on a journey.
Yes, absolutely. And I guess that's what I mean about storytelling. It's you're sharing that journey with those around you, and that becomes a moment that they don't forget.
Yes. And
that's when it's powerful.
And it's also a multi-day event. So we're talking about obviously many different outfits, right? And in different places.
But I kind of liken that to a press tour. I mean, I believe that walking down the aisle is the closest thing to walking down the red carpet. And for most people, that's the singular most important day of their lives. So for me, I'm responsible for dressing movie stars for all these important career achievements in their lives. These images circulate the globe. But for a bride, it's not dissimilar. This is your day. This is your moment. You feel like a star. And these are the photos that you treasure, the moments that you treasure, and the photos that you cherish. So I liken it to one another.
If we could break down different parts of a typical wedding and how you approach it, for example, the cocktail hour, or let's start with the ceremony. All right.
Well, no, because I'll tell you this. I actually think it's all highly personalized.
Yeah.
There is no formula.
Yeah.
There is no recipe. I think what makes me successful at my job and what I have applied to my work in celebrity is that it is highly personalized, and it is each time it's something new and something different. It has to be reflective of the person who's wearing the garment and who's going through the movements and the motions and the moments, because without that, it doesn't feel authentic.
Yes.
And that authenticity is so key, and that can't be replicated. So for me, my process always starts with kind of the basic questions. Who are you working with? When is this happening? Where is this happening? Of course, there are mood boards and, images and references shared, and those are built upon and modified upon multiple times. If you're doing custom, we share sketches back and forth, and I help my client to imagine what it is that they're looking at on a piece of paper. It's my job to help translate that between the designer and the client. And then it's really all about putting the details and the pieces together. Picking out the dress is the easy, fun part.
Yeah. I'm also thinking how in today's world, today's society, it's in a sense become a free-for-all. I mean, in a positive way, anything goes now, right?
Anything goes.
There is no real tradition anymore.
Totally. I mean, I'm a bride-to-be, so I'm experiencing that
we're
firsthand.
Talking about, Micaela, we're talking about that. Tell me about that. What is that like for you? I mean, this is your work.
Well, the pressure's on.
Yeah, I was going to say.
I think I'm my most challenging client. No, actually, I'm having a lot of fun, but I'm learning a lot. I'm kind of like my own guinea pig in this process. It's an interesting exercise to take a step back and to look at myself as I would a client.
Yeah.
Because I'm actually having to make some choices that feel tough because they don't fit with the setting or with the flow of the evening or the event, despite how much I might love a piece, whether it's a shoe or a dress or whatever. Because of course I understand how this all works.
Right.
So it's been an interesting experiment. I mean, in my case, the pressure's on. I'm a stylist. You better believe I'm bringing the couture, and I have, custom dresses and the whole shebang in the works. And I'm absolutely thrilled, and I'm having a total ball doing it.
Can you describe to us?
I cannot. You're going to have to wait and see.
I knew you were going to say that.
A stylist never reveals her secrets. No, but it's going to be really special. And, I've been working with the designer for several months now on my dress, just as I would on a award show gown or another bride's. Who? Nope.
Okay. When is your wedding so that we can finally find out?
My wedding is actually next October.
October of 2020. Right now it's November of 19.
Yep.
Okay.
We wound up changing our venue, so that was a little curveball. But we're going to get married on Halloween, so not what I was expecting.
Are you going to tie in anything?
No. There will be no pumpkins. There will be no cobwebs.
Yeah.
This will still be a glamorous black tie affair.
Yeah.
But it was the date that was available, and to be honest, I think it's going to be fun. It's never been a holiday I've made an effort to participate in.
People
and now,
are very mixed on that.
Yeah, now I think kind of thought it was a stylist's day off, to be honest. But now I have a wonderful reason to celebrate this holiday every year. So it'll be fun, but you'll have to watch and see.
And what about with the attendants, the bridesmaids, the groomsmen? Can you talk about that?
Absolutely. I mean, with Amanda's wedding, I worked with the entire family. And on other award shows, I will say that I have been tapped to help with an actress's date or an actor's date or their mother or whatever it might be. And I work with all different types of people, all different body types and ages. And my client roster is incredibly inclusive. And I like it. I think it's really important to have that big picture view. Think about your family portraits. You want it to all work together.
Yeah.
And forget just like steaming the clothes. Like the hotel can do that probably better than I can. But to be able to architect a photo so that it is harmonious and everyone looks good and no one has a, forgotten button undone or a crooked bow tie, you'll thank us later.
What advice would you give to planners who are working with their bridal couple, where the couple's or the bride's not able to hire a stylist? How would you suggest planners deal with that?
I think that's an amazing question. I'm actually going to touch on that when I am.
You're speaking at Engage.
I'm speaking at Engage. I can appreciate how for some people in light of budgets, having a stylist might not be a top priority, although I strongly recommend it for everyone's sake. Being able to have people stay in their lane and do their job and focus solely on their job allows everyone to do their job better. So the photographer can focus on what he has to do. The planner can focus on the logistics and actually executing the big day. The hair and the makeup people focus on the hair and the makeup. And the stylist makes sure that everything goes according to plan with wardrobe. Because let's be real, fashion emergencies happen, problems happen, and there are instances where you might not have an immediate solution. And so I like to say that I'm like a problem solver 99% of the time.
Yeah, I would say planners would say that too.
Yeah. And so, I have certain tips and suggestions about what to keep in your kit. My kit as a stylist is a rolling duffel full of solutions. And some of those might not be anything new. But I guess my biggest piece of advice is what can go wrong will go wrong. And so you have to be prepared to handle that. Even if it's having an extra dress on hand, it doesn't have to be a fortune, could be a little party dress that you have as a backup. And if it doesn't work, maybe you return it. I think you just always have to have things covered. Zippers break, heels break.
Yeah.
Eyelashes fall off. You better have glue in your kit. Lipstick comes off, makeup comes off, people sweat. There's all different types of things that can happen.
Give us a good story. Tell us a real good one.
I've experienced everything. I've had zippers break on clients' dresses as they're walking on stage.
Oh no.
Minutes before.
What do you do about that?
I mean, luckily I'm on hand and I always have a backup with me.
Yeah.
And I have learned the hard way. I've had zippers pop. I've had heels break. I have had every imaginable malfunction take place. And I think being overprepared is the only suggestion that I can give. There is always a way to improve an otherwise not great scenario. But I am not a genie in a bottle. I can't, repair a totally busted zipper if we can't sew you back in. There are preventative steps that you just have to be willing to take. And I think it's about managing your client's expectations from the get-go.
Can you speak to us as to event professionals in terms of how we present ourselves at events, ourselves? We don't want to upstage the guest.
Totally. Oh my gosh.
The honoree.
I can speak about this. I know what that's like. I mean, for the longest time, stylists were kind of like this wizard behind the curtain. No one wanted to admit in Hollywood that they had help. And then I would say Rachel Zoe started to popularize things and that sentiment changed. And I'll never forget Lupita mentioning our work together on the red carpet. And it was mind-blowing to me because no one had ever really publicly acknowledged that they had help. That being said, there's that side of the thing. We are hired help.
Yes.
We are very glamorous, very creative, very in-demand hired help, but we are the help. And there is a balancing act between knowing where you fit in the equation with your client and also knowing how to promote your brand in an appropriate way. And so it's always about the client, number one, no matter if it's a red carpet star or a bride on her wedding day. However, they have hired you because you bring something to the table and because you have something to offer. And that, to me, is all the reason for you to have the confidence that on the day that you are working, this is, You are there to perform your job and to do the best damn job you possibly can, because that will speak for itself afterwards. But at the same time, remember, you should be dressed appropriately. You should embody what you preach. You are an extension of your brand. And if your brand is selling glamour and selling love stories, then you also have to reflect the part.
There's some events where I've seen some planners, definitely photographers, videographers, various people who to me are so inappropriately dressed, way too casual. I don't get it.
Yeah, keep it professional, guys. Let's be real. Running weddings is a really hard business. You're on your feet for hours. My fiance is a wedding caterer. I get it.
Mm-hmm.
But at the same time, you should look polished and put together, just like the clients you want to attract.
Yeah.
And I think that there's just a balancing act there. Don't wear ripped jeans. I feel like that's such common sense, but hey, who knows?
I know. What about for us industry pros for conferences and networking events?
I think you got to bring your A game. It's different. For me, as a stylist, right, there's Micaela on duty working, and I'm behind the scenes, and I'm behind the scenes for a reason.
Mm-hmm.
And therefore, in my case, I go to my uniform. However, when it's my job to be in front of the camera or on the other side of the business interacting with my peers, you better believe it's time to bring your A game and show and represent what your brand is to others. So in my case, I turn it out. I get dressed up.
Yeah, I can't wait to see you at Engage. But Engage is a great example, isn't it? You've been, that's right, you've
once,
been to it.
and I had the most amazing time, and I was just blown away by this industry, and it reconfirmed how excited I am to enter it and become a part of it.
But what about, when I go, it's easier for me as a guy. I really think it's easier. But I think about for the women there's so much pressure. And I wonder how much stress there is, related to this, to figuring out what your outfits are going to be.
Well, they do give you a Pinterest board, so it's kind of mapped out for you.
True.
But I think you want to know what? At the end of the day,
you still want your own personal style.
No, of course. Personal style is key. At the end of the day, I believe in authenticity, and I believe in dressing as the best version of yourself.
Mm.
And there are lots of creative people with lots of different styles out there, and that's amazing. And so you should embrace that and highlight that and go for it. But I think, again, the same kind of practices apply that do when I'm dressing my clients.
Yeah.
You're dressing for an occasion, a specific one, in a specific location with, may or may not have a dress code, may or may not have certain activities or certain restrictions or weather even. Like basic 101 stuff
That's
here.
right.
But I think if you can find a way to be true to yourself and remember that you are also in the business of luxury and you are in a competitive line of work, you want to stand out as yourself.
Yeah. Let's talk about accessorizing. You wrote a book, How to Accessorize, a perfect finish to every outfit. What about basing your outfit around an accessory or a specialty piece?
Yeah, absolutely. I talk about that in one of my chapters. So I wrote this book actually because several of my clients during our fittings for movie premieres and press tours sometimes would look at me like, well, how did you think of that?
Mm-hmm.
And not to sound self-gratuitous at all, because I'm not reinventing the wheel here, but it occurred to me that getting dressed and putting together a look might be daunting for many people. And so I decided to sort of boil down all of my expert tips and advice on how to transform your outfit with accessories.
Mm-hmm.
So that's really what my book is about. And I kind of think there's two ways for getting dressed. You either build your accessories around your look or the opposite. And that generally involves a statement piece. So whether it's an extraordinary piece of jewelry or a fabulous pair of shoes that should be the focal point, it's really about pinpointing what it is that you want to highlight. Because if you have all these things competing together, it's just going to be a big hot mess. You're going to look overdone. It doesn't work. It's the same reason why working as a team in styling a wedding or working as a team and styling a celebrity is so important. All the pieces have to work together, and it's the same exact method when accessorizing your look. So I think picking a focal point is probably first and foremost in terms of my advice, and sticking with it. And if you pick up my book, you can read all the details on on how I recommend you do that.
You know, for some reason, this is making me think, I hadn't planned to talk about this ahead of time, but so many people have tattoos now. So many. And I'm wondering how that...
Yikes.
How do you incorporate? I mean, there's got to be some real challenges.
In terms of...
Well, working with the kind of tattoos someone may have and where they're located on their body and how that affects, you know, the outfit.
Well... The reality the reality is if your client loves their body art, then amazing.
Then you want to showcase it in a sense.
Then amazing. And then it's your job to find a way to make it work.
Yeah.
You know, again, it comes down to what is authentic about your client. So while I don't have any tattoos and I would want mine removed or covered before showing them, if I did, you know, that's me. But that might not be
Do you deal with that with many people so far where you need to find a way to cover it? It's just not working for the moment?
I've never been asked this question, actually. No, I have never been in that position. Although I will say, like on advertising jobs or editorial shoots.
Yes, branding campaigns, things like that.
Sometimes post-production photoshopping is
They'll just
required.
digitally figure,
Or a little body makeup. Although I wouldn't recommend that on your wedding day because body makeup, while there is waterproof kinds out there, could rub off on your white dress and then you have a fashion emergency that's harder to solve. So, you know, pick and choose your battles here. But I think at the end of the day, you know, it's about your client. And so, okay, maybe you embrace the tattoos. I've never been asked that. That's a great question.
Good. Ooh, good. I'm so happy. Oh, gotcha. So tell me, in terms of you launching a bridal styling and consulting division, when is that going to be launched? I would love to hear about that.
It has launched.
It has? Okay.
So I'm very excited about this. And I am still maintaining my celebrity styling business. Nothing is changing there. I just think that this is such a natural complement to what it is that I already do. And being a bride myself now, a bride to be, I'm realizing firsthand how there truly is a need for people that do what I do. I know that there are a few others in our industry that I really admire. But yes, I am. So I'm not just styling brides, and bridal styling is, to me, much more than just picking out a dress at a store. I think my expertise really lies in curation and custom design. I have access to every designer imaginable and have extraordinary relationships that I'm fortunate to now be able to bring to those who want it. So I can make custom dreams come true. And I actually think that that's something I excel in. My favorite time of year is award season because all I do is custom jewelry, custom shoes, custom bags, custom clothes. I mean, the possibilities are endless.
Do I see some product lines coming out down the line?
You will. So stay tuned. I can't talk too much about that, but there will be big news to come in the next few months in regards to that. And then separately, I'm consulting to bridal brands. So much like I've styled runway shows and consulted to evening wear designers in the past, on the ready-to-wear side of things, I'm offering those same sort of services and bookings to brands that might want the eye of someone that is in this side of the business. You know, evening wear is something I know very, very well. And then lastly, I am also styling advertising campaigns that are marketed towards various sides of the bridal industry. So I'm working with hotel groups and I'm working with other clothing brands on styling their advertising initiatives.
That's wonderful. I have two more questions, Micaela. For stylists who are getting into the business, maybe they've been in the business, they want to go further, they want to get to your level, and you know, what would you recommend to stylists?
Wow. Well, it's a lot of hard work. And in some ways, there's an incredible opportunity right now because we live in this ridiculous digital age of social media, and it seems like anyone can be a stylist. But I think that you have to really hone in on your craft, and you really have to define what your brand is and what your aesthetic is in order to stand out from the rest.
Mm-hmm.
Hard work really does pay off. The, years and years and years of assisting and freelancing and mentorship that I had were invaluable to me. Nothing was handed overnight. And so, you're only as good as your last job.
Yeah, that's right. It's isn't it like that with everything?
With everything.
And then finally, are there any super hot fashion tips that you would give right now?
I'll tell you what, I do not believe in following trends. I hate trends. I think that it has to be highly customized and individual. And at the end of the day, something that's timeless is what's going to last.
Yes.
And something that you'll look back on feeling really confident.
I love that.
Yeah.
Well, Micaela, this has been a blast. I can't wait to see you in a couple of weeks. It's a couple of weeks away.
I know.
You know I'm going to be looking at what you're wearing.
You have to sign up for my breakthrough.
I'm so on you. I'm going to be so on you. So thanks so much for being on the show.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you for listening to my conversation with Micaela Erlanger. Be sure to check out her website at micaelaerlanger.com. Her social media handles are on Instagram at Micaela, and on Facebook and Twitter, it's Micaela Erlanger. All of this is in the show notes. Be sure to find it all there in the spellings. And also, if you enjoyed this, please share it with your friends and colleagues. That helps to grow our community, and give us a great review wherever you get your podcast. That really helps new people to find the show. And don't forget to listen to our follow-on segment with each interview, The Next Level, which comes out on Wednesdays, in which I have a guest co-host and I tease out some of the highlights of the interview. We break them down and deliver some specific tactics and tips to help you raise your own business to the next level. And I'm so excited to announce that this week's guest co-host is going to be Carrie Goldberg, the travel and weddings director at Harper's Bazaar, where she oversees all things bridal, weddings, and travel for Bazaar.com. And she is in charge of content, strategy, and visuals for their digital travel and wedding verticals. And she's the editor of Bazaar's new membership subscription program called Bazaar Bride. So be sure to tune in Wednesday. And I want to mention next week's guest is going to be a little bit out of the ordinary. It is with someone who is not in the event industry. He is an expert with Instagram. And I'd seen him present at a podcast conference, and I was really impressed. And I thought that it would be great to have him come on and give some great tips and advice. Don't forget to come say hello to me if you are coming to engage at Nazook in Mexico soon. I will be in the media lounge. Would love to meet you. And we will catch you next week on The Wedding Biz.